All right, we are off and running officially, I am told. I appreciate all of you hanging out with us. I am in New York City. Reminder, we're going to have our first ever OutKick show on Fox News. It will air Sunday at 10 o'clock. I cannot wait to be able to do that with Charlie Arnault, Tommy Lahren, sorry. We're going to have Riley Gaines. We're going to have Enos Cantor, Mary Catherine Ham, a lot of cool things coming. That's Sunday at 10. I'll obviously be live for 3 hours tomorrow on Clay and Buck. We're going to have Vivek Ramaswamy. We're going to have Chris Christie, among others, maybe more of the candidates that were on the stage tonight. So let's start with my biggest takeaway. I thought there were 3 candidates who established themselves as clearly superior over everyone else. And I think if you watched and you were honest and you were rational and you were not trying to pick favorites and you were just being objective, you would have to have Vivek Ramaswamy, Ron DeSantis, and Nikki Haley as the 3 best performers tonight in some form or fashion. You could have any one of them 1. You could have any one of them 3, but I thought they were clearly the best. Pence, I thought, Chris Christie, and Tim Scott all had moments where you said, okay, I agree with them. They answered that question well. They handled it. I thought all 3 of them did fairly well. And then let's start at the bottom here. I thought Doug Burgum and Asa Hutchinson might as well not have been on the stage. Burgum was better than Hutchinson, but Burgum has this thing where he always wants to talk about like being on a horse or looking off into the distance across the plains or being from a small town. That doesn't really work for me. I like horses. I like small towns. I like majestic. Does any of that mean that you should be president of the United States? I think Doug Burgum's probably a really good business person. I think he's a bad storyteller, and whoever is advising him, he did nothing to stand out in any way and make me think other than when he pulled out the Constitution, which felt forced because his argument about the importance of federalism was legitimate. But why do you need a pocket constitution to make that argument? We all know what the 10th Amendment means and what the respective federalistic aspects are in terms of the rights that are derived and remain with the state as opposed to the federal government. Asa Hutchinson is done. I mean, I don't even know why he's on the stage. I have no real idea what he's running for. And so both those guys, to me, are finished. I think Burgum and Hutchinson, again, probably good dudes, nice enough. I think they have a 0% chance of making any noise at all. To me, the 3 that are going to come out of this and you're going to say, okay, I thought they did pretty well, are, again, Haley, Ramaswamy, and DeSantis. And let's talk about each of those individuals that I thought did well. And let me tell you why I thought they did well. In particular, I thought that Nikki Haley was phenomenal on the abortion answer. Just knocked it out of the park. Let me say also, Martha McCollum, Brett Baer, moderating this debate for Fox News. I thought they did a good job. Nikki Haley answered the abortion question like Republicans have to answer an abortion question to actually be elected president of the United States. This is a big deal. It may not play that well with the Republican base right now, where Mike Pence comes out and he says, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to pass a federal bill that's going to limit the abortion. It's going to be illegal to have abortions after 15 weeks, which is effectively the Mike Pence argument. I understand. All of you have opinions on abortion. It is a complicated issue. My position is I think that 3rd trimester abortion should not be legal. I think that there should certainly be exceptions for rape, incest, life of a mother. That's my personal opinion. 10% of people are in favor of abortions all the way up to the 9th month of pregnancy. 10% believe there should be no exceptions at all. I'm in the middle in the 80%, and I thought that's where Nikki Haley was. I thought she nailed it. In fact, if I had to say what was the best answer that was given all night that would actually win a presidential election, I thought it was Nikki Haley on abortion. She did well on other answers too, but that to me is what stood out the most. I thought that Vivek Ramaswamy was by far the most attacked. And as a result, I believe he will be the most polarizing coming out of this debate. But I actually think that's good for him. He gave clear, concise, direct answers, even if sometimes they are a bit outlandish. He was clearly antagonizing a lot of people on the stage. In particular, I remember Chris Christie. I remember Mike Pence, which I didn't expect. I remember Nikki Haley. I remember all three of those individuals going after Vivek Ramaswamy directly, and sometimes in a pretty contentious fashion. A little bit of DeSantis, but it seemed to me that both of those guys kind of played nice with each other. And so I thought Vivek and a lot of his answers were interesting and well done. I wish the one question, I'll ask him this tomorrow, the one question that he did not get asked that I was actually curious to see was, Vivek has said what I said, which is, as a matter of principle, you should, in my opinion, pardon Donald Trump. We'll talk with Vivek again on Clay and Buck tomorrow. He wasn't asked, at least that I saw it on the camera angle, whether or not he agreed with Mike Pence's decision on January 6th. I thought that was an interesting interplay, and I'll get to it in a moment, the way that they put that forward. But I suspect that many people will like or dislike Vivek because he was, to me, the lightning rod, the fulcrum of this debate that people were responding to the most in terms of frequency. And then I thought DeSantis was pretty solid. I really did. I thought that as the clear number two, I expected that there would be more punches thrown at him. To me, DeSantis didn't really get a punch landed on him. I thought his answers were all reasonable. I thought they were tactful. I thought they seemed presidential. Now, the issue that DeSantis has is he doesn't necessarily pop. He's not a storyteller. He's a policy guy. And I've said this for a while, but I think it's so true and you'll understand it. Every candidate is either a story guy or a policy guy, by and large. DeSantis is a policy guy. I would say Tim Scott, story guy. And the difference between those two has to do with the way that they handle themselves and also the way that they connect. I suspect the reason that many of you, and I'll get to Tim Scott in a moment, but the reason that many people like Tim Scott, he has the highest likability on the entire stage, is because his story connects. American exceptionalism, from having great-grandfathers who were slaves to being in the Senate, appeals to the American spirit. And that story that he tells is very likable. He's a story candidate. I would say that DeSantis is a policy candidate. And those come with different strengths. It means sometimes when you're a policy guy that you have trouble connecting directly with the electorate. When you're a story guy, and I'll say this about Tim Scott, it means that sometimes you can't get to that next level. You can tell the story of why people like you, but then you have trouble transitioning that into a policy to explain why people should believe you can get things done. On the flip side, DeSantis can say what he's done and what he believes from a policy perspective, but he's not necessarily able to peg it to a story to connect it. The best politician combines story with that overall innate idea, policy, right? And that's a unicorn politician because most people are really good at policy or they're really good at theory, at story. They're not usually good at story and policy. So that would be my take. I actually thought Tim Scott kind of disappeared. Coming into this debate, the challenge for Tim Scott, to me, and the challenge for Nikki Haley is they're both a senator and a former governor from South Carolina. They have a lot of the same base. And so one of them is going to have to elevate, and the other one is going to have to, I believe, fall back. And I thought tonight, Nikki Haley elevated. I thought that Tim Scott fell back. He just didn't seem like he grabbed control of the storylines very frequently. So to me, and I know all these people, we've been fortunate to have them all on the radio show. Some of them I know personally, some of them I do not. So I'm not trying to pick sides. Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy stood out to me as the clear winners. Tim Scott, I thought shrunk. I thought he was at times hidden, had a couple of good moments, but I didn't really feel like he connected. The two that I thought had moments but weren't able to take it to the next level were the two that provoked the most, at times, condemnation from inside of the arena. And I think you can make an argument, and I'm not sure where I come down on this, that maybe it would be better if there weren't an audience. Because when you're playing for cheers or you're trying to get over the derision, the booing, sometimes it distracts from your ability to process the arguments. And I thought Brett Baer did a good job when Chris Christie, everybody was booing him aggressively when he went after Trump. He turned and said, look, do you guys want to have a debate and get to other issues or not? And let's talk about that in the Trump discussion. The tease. I mean, look, I work with Fox News, but whichever producer said, let's have a camera on the Fulton County Jail, and as we're going to commercial break, let's show the live feed of the Fulton County Jail and say, up next, after the commercial break, it's the Trump discussion. I bet you nobody turned off their television, and I would even bet you some people got out their phone and they texted their buddies, and they're like, they're talking Trump next. Flip it over there right now. And I thought the way that they handled it, I believe this, I can't remember if it was Martha McCallum or Brett Baer, but they said, raise your hand if you think being convicted would disqualify Trump, or what, maybe that was if you would still vote for Trump if he were convicted, right? Basically, the conviction was the jumping off point, and they asked for hand raise. And Vivek Ramaswamy had his hand up first, because he is the most ardently pro-Trump defender of anybody, I think, of the 8 that were on the stage. And I actually thought that Vivek might get pushed on that. Hey, wait a minute. Are you trying to win, or are you just trying to become Trump's vice president? To me, that's the attack angle that could make sense for Vivek. But then Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy really went at each other. And it seemed to me, you had the line a little bit earlier, I guess, when it was the climate change. Is the climate change agenda a hoax? That's when I saw the fireworks for the first time. And Vivek said he was the only person on the stage not bought and paid for. And I felt like that really antagonized a lot of people on the stage. And then Chris Christie tried to hit him with the Chat GPT argument, which has been a meme that's been floating around out there. The idea that Vivek is sort of an AI version of a candidate. And that he also said, Chris Christie did, that Vivek Ramaswamy was the same type of amateur as Barack Obama. Nikki Haley got in one good line on the climate change agenda. And again, I thought Tim Scott was very likable on it. I bring it up because when we had the Trump discussion, we had to circle back around for Christie to really go after Vivek on the Trump-related issue. And then I thought Pence is good on January 6th. Look, Pence's strongest moment is that, whether you agree or disagree with it, that he stood on principle and upheld his oath to the Constitution on January 6th. Now, if you watch Clay and Buck, or you listen to Clay and Buck, you know that I went after Mike Pence on the pardon issue because he refused to answer the question. And I think one of the most integral questions that every Republican should have to answer on the stage: what would you do if you are elected and Trump is convicted? Would you pardon Donald Trump? I think the answer has to be yes. And not only would I, if I were president, not only would I pardon Donald Trump, but I also think you should take it a step further and say, as a matter of principle, I would even pardon Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and the entire Biden crime family. Because that, to me, is the killer app argument. Because then you really call into question the precedent that is being set of one political party trying to put the chief political adversary of that political party, the chief opposition, in prison. That's banana republic level insanity, in my opinion. And the only way to deal with it is one of two ways. Either you go eye for an eye justice and you say, okay, if they're going to put Trump in prison, we're going to put all the Bidens in prison too. And you basically destroy any confidence whatsoever in American leadership. Or you say, hey, this is not good for America. I'm going to follow the precedent that Gerald Ford set when he pardoned Richard Nixon. I'm going to pardon all the Bidens. I'm going to pardon Trump and all of the Republicans around him. And I'm going to say, let's put that aside. Let's move forward as a country. That, to me, is the killer argument that I haven't heard anybody else make. And so that's what I would say. That's what upsets me about Mike Pence, is that Mike Pence clearly wants to be the principled candidate, but he recognizes simultaneously that his political career is over if he says what I think he actually believes, which is that Donald Trump should go to prison for what he did on January 6th. I think that's what Mike Pence believes. And I would disagree with him, but I would respect him more if he would just continue to be a man of principle and make that argument going forward. As is, I feel like I know Mike Pence. And here is why I say that. I grew up in the South. I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church. Mike Pence reminds me of every deacon that ever became popular, powerful in a traditional Southern Baptist church. That's my biggest takeaway from Mike Pence. So I don't think that it's a weakness on him to say that he upstood for the Constitution. I think the next step of how he addresses Trump's behavior on that day doesn't connect. Vivek said he wouldn't spend any more money on Ukraine. And then that led into what I thought was actually a really good moment for Nikki Haley. I thought she won the confrontation with Vivek Ramaswamy over foreign policy, not because I agree with everything Nikki Haley says, but because I thought she called out Vivek on some of the comments that he has made about American foreign policy and basically said, you are weak on this because you are not a career politician. Now, Vivek, to me, has a really good response. Of course, I'm not a career politician. I'm 38 years old. And so the reason why I have a lot of appeal, if I'm Vivek, is because I'm not like everybody else that is up on this stage. A cartel question. I thought DeSantis' strongest moment in the debate was a direct answer. Yes, I would use force against the Mexican cartels. They're killing tens of thousands of people from fentanyl, not tiptoeing up to anything, not trying to hide, not trying to equivocate. This is my opinion. I'm going to own it. I'm going to stand behind it. I thought it was the best answer. Women's sports, I thought Nikki Haley got, a good question. She said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I jotted down, biological boys don't belong in our girls' locker rooms. I thought that was a good answer. This is, some people are already upset at me for even saying it. Near the end, Martha McCollum asked Chris Christie a question about UFOs, and Christie, I thought, showed good humor, pivoted, and actually gave a phenomenal answer about the importance of trust for any leader to tell the truth to the people that he is trying to lead and why that is ultimately important. So I got a couple of other notes that I jotted down that I want to make sure that I hit. My power rankings, my 1 to 8 rankings of everybody that was on the stage. Nikki Haley, I thought, was the best tonight. I really did. I thought that her answer on abortion was absolutely fantastic. I thought that she was the best performer on the stage tonight. Now, she may well have been running more as a moderate. I'm not sure how well this connected. I thought that Vivek and DeSantis were also in the top 3. Then I have Pence 4, Christie 5, Tim Scott 6, Doug Burgum 7, Asa Hutchinson 8 would be my power rankings. And again, I think you could go Haley 1. I think you could go DeSantis 1. I think you could go Vivek 1. I don't think, based on what I saw, that you could argue that anybody else was the best on the debate stage. And I was curious what the reaction would look like. And so I went to the betting markets because you can go bet in real time. And the winners based on money and the way that the lines have moved during the course of the debate tonight, Vivek Ramaswamy fell. Ron DeSantis made up some ground. Money, in other words, was bet on DeSantis, bet on Nikki Haley. Chris Christie fell, and Tim Scott fell, and Vivek Ramaswamy fell. So, again, I think Vivek is going to be the most polarizing. I think some of you are going to say, man, he was the best one on the stage. I think others of you are going to say, man, he's clearly unqualified. He was not good at all. Some of you might even say he was the worst one on the stage. But I don't think that's bad, because in a debate with 8 people, I think it's oftentimes better to be polarizing for people to like you or not like you than for people to say, yeah, I don't even know why Asa Hutchinson was there, or Doug Burgum, because what's your advantage going forward? Let me also say something else. There's going to be a lot of talk about how many people watched the Tucker interview with Donald Trump. And I plan to watch the Tucker interview with Donald Trump at some point tonight or early tomorrow before I go do my radio show, because I got to prepare myself for all the news out there. So I will watch it. I have not yet. But a lot of people are going to react to the total video views. And you are going to see everybody out there in Trump world, and many people just in the media universe in general, they're going to say, wow, way more people watched Donald Trump be interviewed by Tucker Carlson than watched the Fox News debate. That is not going to be true. Okay? There are different ways that they tally audience. Television, you only count if you watch for at least 6 minutes. And when you see a television number, it's an average of the number of people who watched in each 6-minute segment over the course of an entire program. So this show, this debate, I don't know, what did it go, 2 hours and 10 minutes-ish? So that is 130 minutes, let's say, right? 130 minutes, the average 6-minute viewership for 130 minutes, let's say it's going to be, 15 million. That doesn't mean only 15 million people watched. In fact, it might mean that a total audience of 80 million watched. Each person is not being counted. It's the average number of viewers in each 6-minute increment for 130 minutes. In other words, it's not the total viewership of every second by every individual that turned on their television for every single moment, okay? Or streamed it or whatever else. The way that they count video views is every single person, and I don't know how many seconds you have to watch, but usually it's under a minute. Every single person who watches, even if they only watch for 10 seconds as they are scrolling through their Twitter feed, that counts as a video view. I think is the way. I'm not sure exactly. Somebody else out there would be more of an expert. It's a very short period of time. So when I finish this show, I don't know, it'll probably end up with 75, 100,000 people before all is said and done when you look at the tiny number in the corner. That's not the total number of people who were watching every 6-minute increment. It's the total viewership. And that's different than the way TV audiences are collated, counted. It should all be the same numeracy, but it's not. And a lot of people don't understand that. And as a result, they are going to get confused and create more of a mess based on the way that goes out there. But just keep that in mind, because you are going to see over the next 24 hours countless people who make decisions that are different than that. A couple of other big thoughts, and I tweeted some of these. The least popular candidate. You may disagree completely with me, and that's your right. I would encourage you to watch it and live your reality. You may be right. I might be wrong in terms of the way that this appeal exists for the larger voting electorate. Remember, the least popular candidate in almost every Democrat debate in the 2020 primary season was Joe Biden. He never trended. He actually was often considered to be awful on the stage. He's the president of the United States right now. Most people aren't on Twitter. Do not allow yourself to believe that the real world is on your phone screen. It is not. A tiny minority of people actually go onto social media and spend time aggressively arguing about what they think about something that they saw in the world of politics. The guy who was the worst at social media won the Democrat nomination and is now your president of the United States. So I could be wrong. There may be somebody who is surging based on their debate performance that I didn't see. All of that. Let me also say this. First hour, and really all throughout almost the entirety of the debate, everybody seemed eminently reasonable. There were only about 20 minutes on Trump. There were a wide variety of opinions, but almost everyone was eminently reasonable. I didn't hear any crazy talk. I didn't hear any, let's talk about the right to transgender abortions. I didn't hear any talk about, hey, boys who decide that their girls are really women and they deserve to be women's champions. I didn't hear any of that. And I think it's worth noting that the Republican position on abortion is not actually the radical one. I didn't hear anybody advocate for zero exemptions. I didn't hear anybody out there say, hey, if somebody gets raped, they should be forced to have a baby. If a 14-year-old is a victim of incest, she should be forced to have the baby. No one said that. Yet it is dogma in the Democrat Party that if you are pregnant in your 9th month, you should be able to have an abortion. That is actually the radical proposition. I just think overall, I think this is a pretty good night for Republicans. Because I think if you were Democrats and you were watching this, I don't think there were that many really attackable moments. And I actually thought there was a great deal of diversity of answers and a variety of perspectives that were brought forth. But I thought that hardly any of them were outlandish or outrageous or beyond the pale or truly appealing to a tiny subset of the right-wing population. I thought as a group, this 8-candidate group actually acquitted itself very, very well. All right. I love all of you. We're going to do live reaction shows to big events throughout the 2024 election, as we have been doing for years. If you have never watched any of these before, I hope you enjoy them, because I certainly enjoy reacting in real time. I haven't read a word from anyone analyzing any of their perspectives at all on the entire night's debate. This is all my notes that I took during the course of the debate. We'll debate, we'll discuss, we'll have Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Christie, maybe more candidates, on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show tomorrow. I love all of you. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. This has been OutKick, the show.